roar into action. Lions News fan report here. Are you ready for a seismic shakeup under center? Smash that like button and subscribe if you believe our quarterback room is about to get electrified by a fresh challenger. Could this bold swing finally inject the urgency Detroit's offense has been craving? Is Brad Holmes poised to gamble big on a dual-threat dynamo coming off a championship run? What if the answer to our backup quarterback conundrum isn't already on the roster but tearing up turf elsewhere? The Lions have long built their identity on fierce competition and relentless depth chart battles, and as we edge toward training camp, one storyline looms larger than most: the tantalizing possibility that UFL MVP Bryce Perkins might be suiting up in Honolulu blue. Picture this: a 28-year-old signal caller who dominated the Michigan Panthers en route to a UFL title, torching defenses with 342 passing yards and 9 touchdowns through the air, then turning defenders inside out with 301 rushing yards and 5 more scores on the ground. Can you imagine that kind of versatility breathing new life into our offense? Consider his 69% completion clip against live pros in the spring leagues, a stark contrast to the thin QB depth we've seen when injuries mount or form dips. And let's not forget his brief NFL audition with the Rams in 2022, a taste of the big leagues that left tantalizing hints of what he could become once his post-snap reads and decision-making matured under pressure. My comfortability post-snap, seeing and making decisions, has gotten a lot quicker, Perkins told John Gruden, and isn't that exactly what this football team needs? Someone who can spot a blitz, step up in the pocket, and still torch you with his legs if lanes open up. Imagine the chemistry igniting between Jared Goff's seasoned poise and a hard-charging newcomer determined to prove he belongs. Envision Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen feeling that heat in every practice rep, sharpening their own games in the process. Detroit's front office has never shied away from giving Spring League standouts a shot. Just look at the way Richie Pettibon's scheme rewarded UFL returnees in years past. So why wouldn't Holmes roll the dice on a player who embodies the grit and adaptability this franchise holds dear? Yes, bringing Perkins aboard would mean fewer snaps for our current backups, but competition breeds excellence. And if one thing we know about this Lions organization, it's that only the fiercest earn the right to wear the helmet. Yet questions swirl. Can his collegiate arm strength translate to the faster reads of the NFL? Will his mobility risk undoing meticulously crafted pocket structures? And most tantalizingly, could his arrival spark a ripple effect that propels this offense into the upper echelon of the NFC? As the leaves turn and training camp drills sharpen into preseason showdowns, the prospect of Perkins adding his electric style to our huddle feels almost too good to pass up. But is this just wishful thinking, or is Brad Holmes quietly dialing his phone to secure the most explosive X factor this team has seen in years? Hold on to your helmets, because if this deal goes through, Detroit's QB room might never look the same, and the true implications of such a move will send shockwaves through the league. The countdown to camp has never felt more tantalizing. If you believe the Lions are finally ready to roar, hit that like and let's finish what we started. Picture the electric charge pulsing through Ford Field when Bryce Perkins jogs onto the turf in Honolulu blue, helmet gleaming under the lights, every fan on their feet as the rookie sensation from the UFL MVP stage steps into a huddle built on grit and determination. Imagine a quarterback room transformed not just by talent, but by fearlessness, where Jared Goff's veteran savvy meets Perkins' dual-threat dynamism, and every practice rep feels like a preseason highlight reel. What if Perkins' ability to extend plays with his legs, his 301 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns in just a handful of spring games, becomes the X factor that turns 3rd and long into chunk plays and breathes new life into an offense searching for explosive playmaking? Think back to the 1991 season when Rodney Peete's scrambles ignited a playoff run, forging an identity of toughness that this city still celebrates. Now envision Perkins picking up that torch, weaving between would-be tacklers with the same dogged determination and delivering passes on the run that leave opposing coordinators scrambling to adjust. The ripple effect would reverberate through the locker room, Hendon Hooker sharpening his decision-making under the pressure cooker of real competition, the young receivers eyeing every rollout as a chance to prove they belong in the next tier of NFL playmakers. And what of our rivals? Imagine the Chicago Bears, wired to stop traditional pocket passers, suddenly forced to chase a mobile menace who thrives in chaos. Picture the Green Bay Packers, so accustomed to reading drops and predictable progressions, having to account for a quarterback who might tuck and run at any moment, turning a coverage shell into Swiss cheese. Context matters. Detroit hasn't had a rookie QB carry that kind of load since Bobby Lane's fleet-footed forays in the early 50s, and even then, Lane's arm was the talk of the town. Perkins brings both legs and a pinpoint strike zone that flashed a 69% completion rate against pros in spring play, numbers that would leap off the screen in training camp and force a defensive line to recalibrate every playbook page. Off the field, the emotional lift could be monumental. Loyal season ticket holders who remember the heartbreak of close losses would sense a renewed belief that their team is built to endure and overcome adversity, that every second-half rally isn't a distant dream but a tangible reality. Imagine families in suburban Detroit turning on game day broadcasts, tuning in not just to cheer for a team, but to witness a story unfolding, an underdog from the Detroit suburbs finding a home in the city's own franchise and channeling hometown pride into every snap. And even if Perkins hits rookie growing pains, the parallels to Matthew Stafford's baptism by fire in 2009, when the franchise handed its future to a first-round pick and trusted him to learn on the fly, are impossible to ignore. That boldness paid dividends a decade later. Now, Holmes could be setting the franchise on a similar trajectory by betting on a player whose passion matches the city's heartbeat. So, will Detroit's decision-makers dare to redraw the franchise blueprint, ushering in a new era where adaptability trumps convention and raw talent trumps experience? Will Perkins' signing become the declaration that this is no longer the team that fell short at the goal line, but the one that carves out victories with innovation and heart? The echoes of past near misses will soon collide with the roar of a fresh narrative, and when Perkins takes that first NFL snap under the roar of 65,000 fans, every question, every doubt, every whispered "what if" will crystallize into the moment this team chose to chase greatness rather than settle for hope. The countdown to that defining snap is ticking, and if Detroit pulls the trigger, the landscape of the NFC North may never be the same.